Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Chris with Inside the U, back again. Miami Hurricanes spring practice number 6. Today they were in shoulder pads and shorts, and head coach Mario Cristobal spoke after practice, along with new tight ends coach Mike Vitti and new running backs coach Fabian Upshaw. I'll get into their comments afterwards, but first, the viewing period, able to get about 30 minutes or so, as it's been for most practices this spring. And I just want to give a shout out to the former Hurricanes back at practice, watching these guys, coaching them up. Akeem Mesidor here on Tuesday, back again on Thursday. Ruben Bain was here, as well as CJ Daniels and Keelan Marion. I saw Gino Torretta here also, so always great when former players are able to come back to practice, but especially these guys who were just here. So that was great. Also, I want to point out Josh Moore was at practice Tuesday in a limited form. I forgot to mention that, but he was at practice today in the full white uniform for the offensive team, catching passes. I thought he looked good, so that's a good sign that he's back out here. And Coach Cristobal said he was dealing with something minor, and so he's looking forward to seeing Josh get back into the mix, because he and the rest of the coaching staff believes Josh can have a big year for the Hurricanes as a sophomore after showing signs as a freshman. And then just speaking of wide receivers, with Malachi Toney, watching him again at practice today, and I know it's surprising to say or surprising to hear, but he just looks even better than last year. I mean, it's hard to describe, but just very explosive out of his routes, out of the break there. I think his speed looks great. And I think the thing that we saw a little bit of flashes last year, and just seeing it in our practices, saw it today, but just the catch radius. I mean, he's really doing a really good job of coming down with the ball, and not just the easy ones that are thrown to him, right to him. He's either jumping for passes or making leaping catches, or over the head type set, whatever it might be. He just seems to have an extra gear, is the best way I can describe it, other than looks really fast, really explosive. Looks different than the other wide receivers when he goes on his reps. There's this best way to describe it, also maybe a sense of urgency even with every rep. And to me, watching him, that's exactly how professionals approach practices, and I just think he can be in store for even a bigger year than last year and do even more than he did a year ago. And just a few notes from one-on-ones, able to watch this practice portion but not able to view it, so I want to pass along this information. But I thought Cooper Barkate made a nice catch on a comeback route where Darian Mensah dropped the snap. He picked it up and rolled out, and Cooper was right there on the sideline for the catch, beat O.J. Frederick. And Cooper does a really good job of catching balls in traffic. Saw it again today in some other drills, but just that he just has a knack for catching the ball and getting open. So 2 good things out of him. And then Dalen Upshaw, I thought 2 good plays out of him during this portion here, but one again was on a comeback route going against Jalen Waters, and you could tell that was the route he was going to run, because he could have beaten Jalen, or he had the steps on Jalen to go deep, and instead he comes back and he still beat Jalen easily. Just a really nice play by Dalen, essentially beating Jalen twice on a play, but he did a good job. And then when they moved it to the 5-yard line, when they go 2v2, 2 wide receivers, 2 corners, Dalen made a nice touchdown catch on OJ as well. So good to see Dalen making some plays out here. And then, I find it interesting. I'll get more into some one-on-ones, but Coach Cristobal actually said he thought the cornerbacks had a better day, or really praised them today in practice. But during the viewing period, clearly the wide receivers, the offense were doing a better job of making plays, making catches. Multiple guys were doing that. So sounds like either the corners bounced back, or they definitely did much better as the practice went on. But there was, Samarian Wingo had a really nice long touchdown catch. Got it kind of like a toe-tapping catch, catches it in the back corner of the end zone, gets his hands in the right spot. Thought he did a good job. Not a lot of separation, but enough separation. But the most impressive point in that was he got his hands on the ball, both hands on the ball, and then got his feet in bounds, which was great. It looked like he got both feet. Obviously, you only need one, so good to see as he continues to make plays. And then also, too, some other plays kind of that guys were making. There was a nice catch over the middle. Luka Gilbert. It looked like Omar Thornton was going to come down with the interception. It looked like Omar even got in front of Luka, but Luka, with his size and good hands, got the catch there. And then just a few other notes from practice. I want to talk about Ryan Rodriguez. Afterwards, after practice, he was working on his snapping ability, just taking some extra snaps, and I thought that was good to see. You always want to see guys to put in a little extra effort, so that was good. And also, too, passing along that Alex Mirabal reiterated the fact that he thinks Ryan would have been a starting center at any other program in the ACC, and he just feels very confident that Ryan's going to be a good center for Miami this season. So we'll see. Certainly they've had success with the guys they've brought in at center there. A lot of transfers over the last few years, but now they're staying with the guy they've had in the program for a long time. So good to see Ryan getting an opportunity. He's got to take advantage of it. But I definitely feel like of all 5 of the positions, I definitely have always felt like Ryan's best position would be center. So we'll see how it shakes out there. And then another guy I was paying close attention to was running back Jordan Lyle. I'll have some videos, some clips of the running backs going through some drills. I'm always fascinated to watch the running back drills kind of as they go through it. New coach, clearly he has his own ideas, and I saw some different things that I hadn't seen before. So definitely check that out. With Jordan, just watching him go through his reps and just thinking about his season that he had last year, disappointing. One of the things that Coach Upshaw had to say was he just wants to get Jordan back having confidence, and that's important to him. And I think Jordan still has a potential to have a role on this team. I think with what we saw last year, obviously with Marty Brown and then Gerard Pringle, those guys made plays as reserve running backs behind Mark. And certainly both of those running backs did a good job of earning the trust of the coaching staff as they made big plays, whether it was Gerard at the end of the regular season and then Marty whenever his number was called late in games. So it's up to Jordan to really have a strong spring, I believe, and to try to make the most of his opportunity. There was a time the staff was really high on Jordan being able to make plays. And Coach Dawson, I remember asking him last year, essentially it was right before Jordan really just stopped being a part of the mix, but he just felt confident. He said positive things about Jordan. It just essentially wasn't working out in games and wasn't that productive player they expected after what he did his first year at Miami. So I think Jordan has a potential. I think he's got the opportunity. He just has to come out here every spring when he has scrimmage opportunities, perform well. And as we saw last year, as the natural position with running back, is your time might come at different points in the season. And that'll be a big thing for Jordan or any of these guys. And then when you get your carries, when you get your opportunities, you get those games, you've got to make the most of them and then hopefully, continue on with your role. But I don't think it's time to just clearly dismiss Jordan quite yet. Even though he didn't have a good year last year and other guys did and performed better than him, and those guys are back. But I think still just keep an eye on Jordan. I think personally, I think he'd be good if I thought he maybe got a little too heavy. I thought if he gets a little bit lighter, and I know running backs always like to put on that extra weight, but I think there's a fine line. I just think that speed element with Jordan is important, and hopefully he didn't lose a step by adding a little extra weight last year going into the season. And then just lastly, definitely check out the interviews already posted to the channel with Coach Vitti, Coach Upshaw, with what they had to say, also their journeys to get to Miami. So I definitely recommend that, and Coach Cristobal as well, who spoke after practice. So they're going to practice. Practice number 7 will be on Friday, tomorrow. Reporters are not allowed to be out here. Also, reporters not expected to be able to be at the viewing period on Saturday morning, but expected to have some interviews. So I'll be out here. I'm always out here when I'm allowed to be out here. When reporters are allowed to cover the team, I'll be out here. So just a few updates on practice. I can't believe we've already 6 practices down, but it goes fast. But definitely thanks for watching. Definitely stay tuned to the videos on the player drills. I've got plenty more to post on those. Thanks again for watching. Have a good rest of the day and take care.